All right, Charlotte, I'm ready.
Chris, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Put your face in that mask. Get it in there. All the way in. Nice and snug. We have to start the show.
Okay, I'm ready.
Previously at Cafe Neckbeard. Normally, when you hear that word, previously, it's followed by on, not at. You're elbow deep in a bag of chips, wristwatch deep into a jar of congealed neon cheese. You're at the point in the night where you have had just about enough of your life and are about to watch a TV show. And they roll out a few quick clips you've already seen. Just enough to remind you where you are, what's at stake. Sometimes you haven't watched the earlier episodes, and the recap helps you cheat a little. Sometimes they pull from older seasons to jostle your memory. Sometimes you're watching with other people, and you don't know or care about the show, other than thinking, I know that actor. Is this the serial killer who is also an arborist show? Or maybe the one where the killer is actually an ancient elm tree with commitment issues? Or is this the cake dream lady who makes a cake in a dream that solves the murders in the Hills show? Or maybe the one where everyone is trying to lose their baby fat, or maybe gain it back, and every episode is very clearly about the decline of man. It's exhausting, the amount of stories we're asked to juggle, on top of our own exhausting, miserable, mostly joyless lives. This is going to be a little like that. But then again, this is Cafe Neckbeard, not a TV show, not a video series, not even really a play. It's a theatrical advertisement for a cafe. The context is longer, stranger, and harder to escape. But if you didn't watch the previous installments, don't worry, you'll be just fine, as long as you listen very carefully, starting right now. Speaking of right now you should see Chris Bauer walking around the stage, setting things up. He's the one with the beard. He is probably making, right about now, a pained face. This is normal for him to feel pain in his face. This is planned. Things are going as planned. It doesn't mean it was well planned, but it is planned. Pay attention as he puts pretzels where they don't usually go. Look at all that green glass. Did you know that all of the glass you see tonight is made with uranium? Interesting? You decide. You get it, right? You understand what's happening. We begin again, now that you get it. So previously at Cafe Neckbeard. In Chicago's renowned the historic Logan Square neighborhood, or THLSN, pronounced THLSN, like Pilsen, but with a T and an H, stands an institution unlike any other. Cafe Neckbeard is a 24-hour, cash-only, fine dining, salad-focused eatery, legendary for its triple E, experimental, explosive, and expensive cuisine. Presiding over this culinary universe is the enigmatic chef Anton Star Annis. A man of unyielding principles, Chef Anton famously adheres to a strict no substitutions policy and harbors a radical belief. He does not believe in food allergies. Indeed, he has been known to intentionally add declared allergens, even to water, convinced that his gastronomic prowess can transcend mere biological limitations. Attempts to pay with a credit card are met with a fee, and the transaction ultimately remains cash only. The very origins of Chef Anton Star Annis are shrouded in mystery, a tale brought to light by his estranged twin brother, Tuxedo. Anton, however, adamantly insists he had boring Midwestern parents with the same monosyllabic first name and was an only child, giving himself the nickname Star because he believed he came from nothing and was something special. He repeatedly denies having a brother, especially a twin, and emphatically states that he has never, in his life, outside of a dream, been inside a whale. This steadfast denial persists despite fantastical yet consistent accounts of his true childhood. It's also clear, because Chef Anton believes stars come from nothing, that he doesn't really understand stars. But to be fair, do you, dear audience, think you actually truly understand where stars come from, or what stars really are? According to Tuxedo, he and Anton were born in the mid to late 1980s inside Wendy, a luxury whale liner where time moved at an accelerated rate. Their parents, both named Sam, were employees at the French cafe inside Wendy, their mother a poissonnier, fish cooker, their father a pêcheur, fisherman. Their father, Sam, committed suicide by swimming out of the whale upon learning of fatherhood, and their mother, Sam, died shortly after giving birth. An elderly Belgian maitre d', also named Anton, wearing a tuxedo, rescued the infant boys, carrying them on uranium glass plates, what he called Vaseline glass, the older term for uranium glass, covered with silver warming domes, and slipped them through Wendy's porthole into the icy sea. They were plucked from the water by a man known as the Drifter. Because of Wendy's accelerated time, the boys were already 5 years old when rescued. The Drifter, alarmed at their rapid growth, brought them to a forest in Idaho where a group of bearded old men fed them black, sticky ambergris in glowing uranium glass vessels, slowing their bodies and holding them at the age of 7. Anton sometimes recalls these events as a dream, leaping from a whale, tasting ambergris that smelled of the sea, honey, and death. The most beautiful parts of life pressed into a single sticky ball. He insists it was never real. Tuxedo insists otherwise, and adds another memory Anton will not admit, of life on a celery farm, where Anton was trapped in the Celery Queen's kitchen until the day Tuxedo raised 2 hatchets, one to strike down the queen as she turned on his brother, and the other to kill the celery pig that charged to defend her. For Anton, this becomes just a summer with an eccentric aunt who loved celery too much. For Tuxedo, it was blood in the fields, and the first time he saved his brother's life. Chris Bauer, the cafe's PR representative, admits to believing Tuxedo's version, fantastical, violent, and yet the only one that makes any fucking sense. Anton's denial, his insistence on a fabricated Midwestern childhood, stems from his belief that becoming an extraordinary chef from ordinary origins is a better story than the truth. Chris, behind Anton's back, collects Tuxedo's memories as the only record of what really happened. Into this world stepped Chris Bauer, a figure of boundless, if often unappreciated, dedication. His journey began in October of 2014 as a PR representative for Cafe Neckbeard, after initially critiquing the cafe's bewildering marketing materials. His roles quickly expanded to procurement specialist, and during the darkest days of the pandemic special events and delivery and carry-out coordinator. Despite holding down exactly 135 other jobs just to survive, coincidentally the same number of chapters in Herman Melville's nautical masterpiece, Moby Dick, Chris's part-time jobs often involve him pretending to be other than human animals to perform mundane tasks, in some kind of perverse but rarely sexual reverse Flintstoning. Because of these frequent humiliations, Chris considers his work for Cafe Neckbeard the only jobs that truly matter. It's a poignant irony that Chris suffers from celiac disease, a condition that has always barred him from tasting Chef Anton's creations. Recently, though, an accidentally gluten-free starter, splitting the soggy biscuit dream, a dish that savagely rewrote the history of American cuisine, gave Chris a glimmer of hope that he might finally experience Anton's food and discover for himself what, as they say, was the fuss. But when Anton realized his mistake, he collapsed so completely, wept so violently, that the cafe closed for nearly a week. Chris, fork in hand, slowly set it down and has never lifted it again. Chef Anton, a man who rarely strays beyond the borders of THLSN, remains blissfully unaware of Chris's dietary restrictions, his fluctuating health, his tireless promotional efforts, and, more often than not, forgets to pay him. The inner workings of Cafe Neckbeard are as peculiar as its menus. Leo, the head waiter, has a son, also named Leo, who prefers to be called Leopold. He lives on Nantucket with his mother, who never allows visits for reasons unexplained. What does pass between Chicago and that small island is money, letters, and hand-drawn birds, tokens of sadness, regret, and love. that Leopold pastes to the windows to keep real birds from striking the glass. Though he once considered killing Chef Anton over a proposed no-food menu that threatened his family's survival, Leo remains loyal, working for meager pay and living in the cafe's flood-prone wet cellar. By contrast, Doughboy, the steward and longest-serving employee after Anton, handles everything from meticulous cleaning and glass polishing to the unsettling work of hand-strangling animals. For this dedication, he earns 6 figures, enjoys rent-free basement lodging with a luxury raft to make floods more comfortable, and of course, a dental plan. Cafe Neckbeard's history is punctuated by a series of conceptual menus, each pushing the boundaries of culinary expectation. The 2017 Failure Menu, featuring dishes inspired by institutional failures like the American education system, and a dessert that never comes, but increases in price every time you ask about it. The Late Spring Icelandic Volcano Menu featured a soup served in a replica volcano with ingredients that literally erupted into the throats of strapped-in diners, and a main course of braised lamb stew with spiced ground whole elf. The farm table menu involved meals grown and cooked whole in dirt plots. The cool summer menu offered 137 luxury popsicles over an 11-hour span with no breaks. The Irish potato famine menu served virtually no food, save a simple hand-decanted sugar beet salad after a stern lecture about the pain of starvation, but you did get to take home a period replica of an empty potato sack. Scattered goods, inspired by the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, ensured only 20% of its final course was edible to match up with the percentage of the city that escaped unscathed. The Uranium-92 Atomic Delights menu boasted ingredients capable of surviving an atomic apocalypse. The Mid-Spring Changing Your Mind menu served dishes inspired by improvisational theatre, performances that didn't end at the table, but continued their unpredictable artistic journey through digestion, climaxing in an encore during evacuation. The infamous 99% celery menu consisted of 99% celery and 1% of everything else in the world, served in uranium celery vases. The incredibly controversial, but ultimately heartbreaking and powerful False Flags menu included a savory dish named Sandy Hook. It began with miniature rabbits lying dead before miraculously coming back to life, only to be finger-strangled by Doughboy tableside, then pan-roasted and hand-decapitated, their heads placed along the ridge of the plate in solemn judgment of all the diner's past, present, and future sins, including all of the questionable things they had ever laughed at. Close your eyes now, dear audience, and you will see those rabbit heads on the ridge of the plate of your life, judging you. A significant, albeit failed, ambition in the cafe's history was Chef Anton's rooftop meditation garden. In 2014, he launched a fundraising campaign aiming for $3 to $4 million. The vision was grand: acquire his 2-flat building, which he didn't own, buy out Mrs. Nangle's upstairs lease, convert the A-frame roof into a flat top, completely rebuild the structure, and then cultivate an elaborate, climate-controlled garden. This garden was designed to mimic 15 different global climates, enabling the growth of exotic ingredients like saffron, wasabi, and vanilla. However, the ambitious project ultimately collapsed. Chef Anton's unwavering insistence on cash-only donations, an artistic compromise he refused to budge on, combined with the public perception of the campaign as a joke, sealed its fate. Chris, who had initially offered his PR expertise for an online fundraiser, was stymied by Anton's inflexible cash-only stance. The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges. On March 15, 2020, the 99% celery menu concluded. The very next day, March 16, 2020, in a defiant act against a citywide indoor dining ban, Chef Anton opened Cafe Neckbeard with his On the Beach menu, a culinary interpretation of Neville Shute's post-apocalyptic novel. No customers arrived, plunging Chef Anton into emotional distress. To survive, Chris and Doughboy initiated a temporary coffee delivery service. The Pig and the Bear bring you coffee in Logan Square. This service, exclusively serving whale-aged coffee in uranium cups within THLSN, also operated strictly on a cash-only basis. During this period, Chef Anton retreated to his upstairs apartment, pretending to embark on a global journey, sending letters and making calls from his self-imposed exile. On March 15th, 2021, Chef Anton re-emerged, declaring, "Today is coffee's last day," effectively ending the delivery venture. Chris would later reflect on this year as both the worst and best of his life. This challenging period was dramatically reenacted in the 2022 show, Cafe Neckbeard to Go. And now, after all the history, the challenges, the triumphs, and the culinary explorations, we stand on the precipice of a new, groundbreaking experience. Prepare yourselves for the brand new show and a brand new menu, an event that promises to be the next monumental chapter in this extraordinary narrative. It is titled Cafe Neckbeard Irresistible. The stage is set. We hope. These type of recaps are usually like 15 seconds, right? This has been going for like 15 minutes, right? Chris looks tired, doesn't he? If you look at him closely, you can see he is in pain. But don't tell him you've noticed. He wants you to notice, but not to acknowledge it. It's an exercise in vanity mixed with control, a performance of suffering staged for your silent recognition. Pretty pathetic, if you ask me. This is completely absurd, and people have probably already walked out, right? I am a computer-generated voice with no eyes to see, no heart to pound, no ears to hear, no brain to think. But I think, figure of speech, that some people have left. Or maybe they really are in the restroom because they have to be. Or maybe they're hiding there, the way teenagers sometimes do at parties, deciding who they'll be when they step out and barrel, eyes shut, fists clenched, back into the fuss. No? He's ready? Are you? Oh, well, can we have some of that coffee? Did he really make coffee while I was talking? Charlotte? Charlotte, are you there? Hi, Charlotte. Can you believe I talked for this long and still never explained why it was called Cafe Neckbeard? Is it because I don't know? Charlotte, you don't have to answer that question. Where's Leo? Where's Doughboy? Where's Tuxedo? We know where Anton is. We have eyes on Chris. Where in the watery part of the world is Wendy? Chris, are you ready? He can't even understand me, can he? I'll have to switch.
Chris! Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm totally ready.
Time to actually start the show.
Okay, I'm ready.
Thanks,
Vern.
Charlotte.
Thanks, Charlotte. You can just close me up and start the next cue.
Fish today, another man has gone out to sea. Another fisherman was lost today. Life is moving on in Wendy. Another fisherman was fished today. Another man has gone out to sea. Another fisherman was lost today. Life is moving on in Wendy.
free. Just follow the stars and crap. If you've got an appetite, open that throat up, please. Chef Anton will feed your soul unless you're gluten-free. It's in your house. Cafe Neckbeard's 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 in your house. If you were waiting for a friend, let's say they were supposed to show up around 5 p.m. on a Sunday, and at 5, maybe a few ticks after, you check your watch and they're not there. And you know them. You think you know them, and they're usually on time. So you start rationalizing. Parking's tough. Parking's tough everywhere. There's always complications. Exits, lighting, gravel, mud, holes, ditches, dumpsters, and sometimes places where you might live, there are bears. Who? It was weird to say who there. Who there? Bears. Bears are animals who, no, that's still wrong. Bears are animals that can certainly make a person late. If you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Things are just crowded everywhere, even in wide open spaces. It can still feel crowded. And your late friend might be coming by foot, train, bus, bike, scooter, things with wheels that stick, doors that jam, things that bend, slip, slide, and you worry. Are they okay? But then you look out the window and you see that your friend is just walking around outside. Your apartment, your house, a parking lot, a field, just doing these weird little things, walking in circles, emptying their pockets, their trunks, making little sculptures on the lawn, on curbs and bushes. And are those animal heads? Are they cutting vegetables up? Is that celery? Are they making coffee? And you wonder, how do they have so much crap? And what are they doing out there? And so you ask yourself, do they not want to come in? Is something holding them back? Are they building up to something? Are they maybe on the phone and just listening? And maybe they're listening to a podcast about the history of Nordic dentistry. And they're going to come into your house as a newly minted expert on the subject. But then you realize you're being less than generous, the way you sometimes can be. Maybe there's something more important going on. Are they about to tell you something terrible? About you, maybe? Or worse yet, something that has little or nothing to do with you at all. You cycle through your thoughts the way you often do. You make faces when you pause on a memory. And then you start spinning yourself around with those questions, and by the time they finally knock on the door, you're not sure what to think. Suspicious, curious, hopeful, terrified. And that's maybe where some of you are right now with me. Wondering, what's he worried about? And then you begin to worry. Or, if you're feeling generous, what's he so excited to tell us? And then you start to get excited. Is this all about how he just hasn't figured out how to start? He's such an interesting, thoughtful friend, you think. I better be patient with him. He looks like he might be in some kind of pain. Whatever you think, dear audience, I'm just so happy you're here tonight. And that this version of you is worried about me, excited about me, and that you think of me as your friend. And I will say, just as your friend outside of your house would say, rhyming without meaning to, I'm in kind of a fix. While I'd love to ask questions about you, I have to get out of here by 6. My name is Chris Bauer. Before I tell you why we're really here, I need to explain my outfit. But first, a confession. I can't understand British accents. Posh, coal mine, Cockney, Scouse, doesn't matter. I like British people. I've hung out with them, but I never know what they're saying. Watching British TV, subtitles. In life, no subtitles. I've dreamed of inventing a digital shirt that would subtitle whoever you're talking to, but they'd have to be wearing the shirt. There's a lot of problems with my ideas, so if you're British, I'm sorry. I've smiled politely at you, but I didn't understand the fucking word. I am right now on the stage dressed as a clownfish. When I bought this, I thought it was a goldfish costume. It was sold to me as a goldfish costume. It is not. It's a knockoff from Finding Nemo. And when I bought it, I wasn't expecting anatomical accuracy, but still, the more I wore it, the more I noticed how different fish bodies are from ours. Shape, circumstance, environment, evolution. Also, I bought it for $49.99 on Amazon, which offered goldfish costumes ranging from $12 to $6,000. And for some reason, shirts that simply said across the front, I am a goldfish. It's not a costume, it's just a shirt made for people that hate Halloween, maybe, or maybe just AI-generated search results. And if I was going to be that generic, maybe I'd add an exclamation point or a question mark to the animal that I was saying I was, or even better, both. I am an otter? Anyway, I bought this for work. Same as someone buying the embossed polo at a retail job. You pay for your own uniform. And I was hired to be a goldfish. And this would end up being, for a short time, one of my 135 part-time jobs, which coincidentally is the exact number of chapters in Herman Melville's Moby Dick. I figured out a long time ago this is the exact number of jobs that I need to stay afloat, to make it through a day, and to continue working my dream jobs, which are being the PR representative and procurement specialist of Chef Anton Star Annis's Cafe Neckbeard, Philson's own 24-hour fine dining, celiac-intolerant, edible ants in your pants, electric slides of flavor from farm to table, spoon to stomach, cash-only eatery. At the time I was hired to be a goldfish, I was doing one of my customer service gigs on the phone while waiting for the bus. You know the job. Take complaint calls, absorb rage. Working for a telecom company everybody hates. I understand. I offer no solutions, just an unhelpful ear. That's the job. And at the bus stop, I was listening to someone yell at me about our outlandish but legal price structures while multitasking by doing my goldfish exercises, mouth out. And speaking of relatives of otters, this woman in an actual mink stole stops me out there in the street, and she says, "That's high quality goldfish." And I was stunned, like no one ever notices me. And she offers me coffee, and then 30 minutes later I got a new animal acting job, and I never even had to take a break from my telecom job because nodding and saying, I understand, totally worked for the interview. So it turns out that this woman runs a human aquarium in her loft. She has a fancy job and gets to work from home most days and wants to be a mermaid in an aquarium for at least part of the time. She hired people to be sea creatures swimming around her as she typed on her laptop. And I show up to day one and there are like 10 other sea creatures there. Starfish, squids, barracudas, sea urchins, seahorses, a sea dragon, and even a person with suction cups that was playing a barnacle. Their costumes were amazing. They're like stretching and getting into character, and my costume looks like fucking pajamas. The client saw me and said with deep disappointment, "I thought you were gonna be a goldfish." Not a great start. So the tank was her loft. We all started off playing dead on the floor and waited for the sound of water filling the tank, and we all came to life, and there was lush, beautiful music intertwined with the sound of water being filtered, and the black lights flashed, revealing the bioluminescence of some of the cast's incredible, and I hesitate to call them costumes, so I'm gonna call them skins. Everyone around me did dance. No, not even dance. They swam. Not as people, but as fish, as crustaceans, as creatures of the sea. They all moved so beautifully, like they trained at the Juilliard School of Aquatic Arts. And meanwhile, I flopped around, unqualified and humiliated. The client lounged as a mermaid on a fainting couch, shimmering tail, typing away, headset on, bubbles somehow escaping her mouth. And then my jaw started cracking. Part of my recovery exercise, my goldfish mouth, the moves that got me the job. It hurts to do them, but I have to. And when it cracks, it's loud. A reminder that we're made of bones. I tried to hide it, but she noticed. Disappointment again. Midway through the shift, we all heard a loud dinner chime, and hooks dropped from the ceiling. Bait was floating on the surface of the imaginary water. Feeding time. Everyone rushed up like kids feeding goldfish flakes, but reversed. I swam up too, more like a chicken than a fish, and I was about to bite into what I could see was a pretzel dangling on a hook. Then I thought, wait, am I being fished? Is this how I die? And I see everybody else munching away, probably authentically, and I stop. I have celiac disease. So I asked a question that I've asked about 1,000 times in my life, each time causing me stress that probably erased a day of life on Earth. Are those gluten-free? And then I got fired. It's not the first time I've been fired, but the first time I've been fish fired. Jesus Christ. Anyway, down to 134 jobs. Luckily, I got options. For instance, I've long worked as a bee. So I hand pollinate flowers for a woman who doesn't expect much performance. I just buzz around, pretend I've got a stinger once in a while, and sometimes I water her plants, which a bee wouldn't do, but nobody really takes it all that seriously. Once in a while there's another bee, but he only works when he's in town visiting his mom. It's a nice gig. It pays well. And then there's truck hole. So I'm the online showrunner, I guess that's the title. I'm a showrunner of a
show called Truck Holes, which is a show where giant trucks get dropped into giant holes. That's it. And patriotic men with huge bellies scream and sob as the trucks vanish into the earth. And I come up with taglines for the show, and I have a couple of them. I remember it's like, "Where thy be trucks, thy be holes," or "Truck hole, where trucks meet holes." And trucks ain't afraid of no holes. It's hard to explain, but I'm just going to show it a little bit. Here's what the show is.
We regret to inform you that Truck Hole has been canceled. This summer, we're digging deep and going big. Get ready for the biggest, baddest thing on television.
You get it. So, I don't really make the show. I just make the ads using AI slopware. And then I make the cancellation notices where the same patriotic men sob in their truck hole merch. So every day I announce Truck Hole to the world, and every day I announce that it has been canceled. And every month somehow a large envelope shows up with new prompts and a very small amount of cash. And I don't even know who hired me. I just know I was asked to do it, and I do it. My expertise? Trucks exist, holes exist, I live in America, and that's it. So, I could keep this up all night, list all the jobs I have. Like my inventory job at Nails & Sons, where I confirm the number of nails in boxes of nails. Or the Bucktown gig, where I polish Rick Bayless's large collection of golden doorknobs. Or the most humiliating job I have, which is being an adjunct English professor. But I really want to get to the reason I'm here. And that's to tell you about the greatest restaurant on earth. Certainly the greatest restaurant in the historic Logan Square neighborhood. Chef Anton Staranius's Cafe Neckbeard and his brand new menu, Irresistible. The Irresistible menu was initially conceived as a way to feed those with diminished or distorted taste and smell, not to cure them, not to over-season for what's missing, but to delight the hidden receptors scattered throughout the body and soul. And was then, after much soul-searching and the unavoidable recognition that such a venture required patrons of means to underwrite its ambition, magnanimously open to everyone. Because, as Anton insists, often we do not live in a minority-rule society. Unless, of course, we are the minority, in which case it's only right that we should be in charge. Irresistible began with an old friend refusing dinner at Cafe Neckbeard when he was in town, just as Anton had launched his first post-pandemic menu, Carnival of the Animals, a playful feast translating Camille Saint-Saëns's 14-part musical menagerie into courses where animals became food and food became animals, staged as both spectacle and satire. One course, The Swan, involved two rare North American trumpeter swans, deconstructed, hand-pureed, and reformed into a single quivering aspic swan, presented under a uranium glass dome. And when the dome was lifted, the swan took flight, circled the rafters, and returned politely to the plate. At which point Leo or Doughboy, whoever was serving that night, would arrive with an iPad and show you, the diner, footage of you, the diner, not the swan, suspended in the rafters, proving it was you who had taken flight, and you that had returned politely to your seat. It was an incredible menu. And as the procurement specialist of Cafe Neckbeard, I could stand here for hours talking about how hard it was to legally acquire that many swans. So hard, in fact, it wasn't legal at all. And normally I'd be terrified of violating the Migratory Bird Treaty Act of 1918, but have you seen who's running the federal government? You could kill every swan in America, and they'd honor you with a bronze statue of yourself hand strangling the last one in some public, soon-to-be private park. It's depressing when the hardest things in life suddenly become easy, and the world is worse for it. Like music, once rare and joyful to seek out, now appearing in a second and vanishing just as quickly while you watch a movie with subtitles at 3 times speed. But I digress. Sorry, chef, not worth it, his friend said. I got no taste buds, they'll be lost on me. It's all just calories now. Fun's gone. Since about with COVID, his friend couldn't taste, could barely smell, and food no longer held his attention. And this friend, wealthy, voracious, he was the kind of man who might leap out of a moving car at the mere whiff of birria, or even at just a sight of the word, was now just not just indifferent, but immune to Anton's superpower. This was the same friend who used to travel to THLSN from anywhere in the world, step off a plane, take a cab to the cafe, and then fly back the same night, never once saying not worth it. And now, with a shrug, he had. That cut Anton deeper than any blade could. And if you tried to imagine the size of this cruel blade, it would stretch from right here in Humboldt Park all the way to THLSN. To live in a world where his cooking could be resisted, dismissed so casually, was unbearable. At first, Anton's vision was generous, even cosmic. He imagined a menu for everyone who had lost something essential, taste, smell, or both. And there are many, countless people live with dulled or absent senses, often quietly without ever seeking help. The causes are everywhere: viral infections, dry mouth, aging, medications that hijack the palate, chemotherapy that leaves the mouth metallic and barren, radiation for head and neck cancers that silences flavor altogether. Anton's research led him to an unexpected revelation. Taste receptors are scattered throughout the body, not just on the tongue. His irresistible menu was an attempt to reach them all, to delight, to converse, to let flavors dance beyond the mouth. He refused to treat these receptors as mere statistics or background characters, and in a move some might call Altman-esque, Anton wanted to give every receptor a speaking role, to let the whole body join the conversation of flavor. To him, they represented a vast, overlooked audience, millions of people abandoned by cuisine, written out of a sensory contract between chef and diner. He believed they deserved more, not pity, not consolation, but astonishment. A menu that would remind them that the body was still capable of delight. A silent, invisible demographic awaiting revelation. But then he noticed something else. These people were not all the same. And some of them sounded suspiciously like the allergy people. A demographic Anton despised, the ones who say, no egg, no pepper, no salt, no gluten. Not as a passing preference, which is bad enough, but because they carry a medical restriction. People accustomed to getting things their way, accustomed to menus bending towards them. They were an audience, yes, but not an audience that Anton wanted. And so, like many chefs before him, he pivoted. The way a chef might celebrate traditionally inexpensive, delicious street food by turning it into a $700 tasting menu that makes you cry into your Italian linen napkin about colonialism like it was a tragedy of the past and not a thriving reality in the present. Anton chose not to make the irresistible menu only for those who had lost taste and smell. He made it for everyone, which in practice meant those with the means to sustain his vision. The ones willing to believe there was still a place for solitary genius and willing to opt in completely. You could call that arrogance, but isn't it also the way great things get made here in America? Sometimes the privileged few have to fund it first, so it exists at all. So the rest of us can even know it's possible. And isn't it better for great art to exist, even at that price, than not to exist in the first place? The initial talk of reaching patients, hospitals, doctors, the PR halo of saving the tasteless, that evaporated. And what remained was a menu that became irresistible, not through compassion, but through Anton's certainty that he knew best. And if I sound bitter about this, it's because I was, from the beginning, the perfect candidate, the ideal diner. Silent taste buds, muted palate, throat scarred, smell unreliable. I was there during the research, the design, the rollout, but the menu wasn't for me, not in the end, and not just because it wasn't gluten-free. That rhymed. Did you notice? And all this leads me to the place I've been circling around. I'm sure you've noticed it. I've been avoiding it. Not just out of fear, but because for the last year and a half, my doctors told me not to talk about it. That said, talking about my illness, my treatments, my pain was impolite, in poor taste, and worse, giving it voice would make it grow. My doctor said cancer feeds on the search for pity. I want to just stand here and tell you the stories you want to hear about the restaurant after the pandemic, about Leo coming back upstairs with his self-help book written, showing up to your life, and him actually showing up. Leo told Anton he wasn't going to work 24 hours a day anymore, and he got another job, serving at a new place in Logan Square called Sincerity, where the waiters and diners eat together, cry together, and hug a little too much. It's problematic for lots of reasons because the cooks and the busboys aren't invited in, but progress? For Leo, yes, he's happier and he's sending more money and more birds to Leopold. I wish I could tell you more about Doughboy, who took over most of the serving duties. Leo trained him well, and somehow Doughboy got a 50% raise. He's now making $165,000 a year, more than Leo ever did and more than I'll ever see from Anton. But Doughboy doesn't brag, he just leaves his pay stubs lying around. He's unrefined, but good-hearted, joy mostly. And I want to tell you more than anything, that during this time, Chef Anton and I got closer. He started listening to me, sometimes even answering. I convinced him the coffee project had life. Even though he shut it down forever, he admitted it did save Cafe Neckbeard. But in the winter of 2023 into 2024, something shifted. My words changed. They came out murky, not crisp. It hurt to talk, to drink, to eat, to swallow, to breathe. My voice turned into a mix of Tom Waits and Kermit the Frog. If they had a kid, couldn't sing and could barely speak. And sometimes when I coughed, there was no phlegm but blood. I'm not really a go to the doctor person. My insurance is a joke. I mean, I wish it was a joke, it'd be funnier. 10 years ago, I signed on to this so-called lifetime plan for gig workers. It was supposed to cover me. It doesn't. In fact, it has a $350,000 yearly deductible. And when I signed up for it, one of the selling points was that it was highly unlikely that a year's worth of medical bills could get that high. This proved a couple things. One, I didn't know what a deductible was. And two, 2015 insurance scammers didn't have the imagination for how much things could cost in 2024. I didn't want to go to the doctor at all, but Anton started saying he couldn't understand me, that hearing me hurt him, that it made his life harder. So he asked if I could text instead of talk. And while I do enjoy texting, this was problematic because 10 years ago I signed up for a lifetime unlimited cell phone plan. $187 a month, supposedly a new phone every year that turned out to be every leap year. And the other annoying catch is that unlimited was in quotes on the ads for legal reasons because it was actually what they call in the ad business sarcasm. Not sarcasm, sarcasm. I only get 50 words of text per month, so I have to ration. But I found a workaround. If I didn't hit the space bar, I could just make a whole paragraph into one word. But I only get to do that 50 times a month, and people tell me it's really hard to read. So eventually, I realized I had to go to the doctor. So when I finally went to the hospital, they looked at my swollen neck, they ran the strep test, the abscess test, thought maybe it was something they could drain. They sent me to a throat specialist, and there this nurse had tiny T-Rex arms and a bad attitude. Kept apologizing for that bad attitude, but kept it anyway. It's late in the day, this is gross, I don't want to do this, she said. She stood there waiting for what was going to be the worst part of her day, the draining of a neck abscess, the thing that was going to happen to me. But the doctor looked inside my throat and just said plainly, "Oh, that's a tumor." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a tiny T-Rex blow out a small sigh of relief before catching herself. While the doctor explained the next step to me, the nurse tried for a second to look compassionate and then almost sheepishly backed out of the room with her cart of scalpels and what I assumed were trays for catching pus. The biopsy the next morning confirmed it. Cancer, dangerous, life-threatening, but treatable. And my first questions were, how did this happen and how do I pay for it? They checked my insurance and I learned what a $350,000 deductible actually meant. Treatment costs $400,000 to $500,000, meaning I'd owe $350,000, and the doctor said, honestly, it'd be cheaper if you didn't have insurance at all. Then they offered me this experimental program. Free treatment, same treatment, but free, but I had to sign a waiver. I signed up without really knowing what I was agreeing to. Later, they explained the treatment itself would be the same as any other patient, daily appointments for 3 months, just like everybody else. The experiment was in how I would be treated emotionally. And what could be better than free when the alternative was $500,000? And after that, the staff began testing their theory that kindness made people sicker. They called it tough love, but it really wasn't love at all. It was often cruel, medically irresponsible, and at times I questioned whether they were just being the assholes they wanted to be. When I rated my pain a 7, they would sigh, roll their eyes, and write down 4. Sometimes they claimed they lost my records, left me waiting in the cancer lobby for an hour before announcing that Gary, who ran records, didn't like me. Thought I was a baby, maybe faking my cancer. Gary would eventually hand over my folder, pages streaked with deep red Cheeto dust. Instead of apologizing, they defended Gary, said he was awesome at medical records, was a great judge of character, and a fantastic father. And then they made me look at pictures of his kids. It was an exercise in cruelty, and they were good at it. When I asked how I got cancer, I had assumed it was Cafe Neckbeard. Uranium glass, 150 microwaves running around me all the time, bizarre chemicals, my hands, sometimes my whole body in strange places, like the time I spent inside the intestinal tract of a beached whale looking for ambergris in Jamaica, a work trip where I spent more time in a whale on the beach than I did on the actual beach. But no, HPV, throat cancer, human papillomavirus, a virus you get from intimacy, from sex, from kissing. And I was stunned because intimacy has never been a part of my life. I've never kissed anyone. I've never even held anyone's hand too long. I just don't long for it. I don't miss it. I just don't do it. I hesitate to even call myself asexual because to me that still sounds a little too sexual. I'm not an incel. I'm not angry about it. I just don't want it. Never have. So how could I have sexually transmitted cancer? And for a moment I panicked that had something happened to me without me knowing? Was I assaulted and didn't realize it? The thought terrified me. I even caught myself asking questions like people did in the early days of AIDS. Could I have gotten it from sharing a drink, from a fork? The doctors, after muttering the word loser and what of a few times under their breath, said no, it only comes from very close contact, oral sex, deep kissing. And I've never had either. They said almost everyone in the world has this virus, and it only in rare cases develops into cancer. A healthy body normally clears it, but a body's not always healthy, and sometimes it doesn't. They gave me this experimental drug called Resentrex. It puts you under and lets your body remember who gave you what. Your mind talks to your body, like goes through the files, as they say, and the results are highly accurate, like a polygraph, never admissible in court, but everyone knows it's true. It was first marketed as a way to track colds, to find out if sneezing Pam, who kept insisting it's allergies, was lying. It's a truth serum, but like most searches for truth, it quickly becomes about resentment. I took it, fell under, and I saw it. 5-6 years ago, I was broke. Only had 134 jobs. Having just lost a job where I helped Rahm Emanuel write This Is Us fan fiction. And Rahm, I call him Rahm, thought I wasn't like channeling enough centrist rage or using enough profanity in the dialogue. So anyway, I was broke. I found myself walking through a community college campus and I saw a help wanted sign. And the nursing program needed a CPR dummy. Their plastic one just broke and they were desperate to get students certified. They said, just lie there, they said, it's easy. So I lay on the table, a line of students practicing compressions and mouth to mouth for hours. And one of them, green eyes, that's all I remember, put her lips on mine. She went all in. There was nothing sexual about it. She just did it very wrong. That's when I got it. That's when the virus entered me, and it grew into a tumor the size of an avocado, pressing into my nerves, crawling into my throat, waiting to close it off, waiting to spread to my bones, my brain. And I also remembered, I went home that day with 23 cracked ribs. They told me treatment had to start immediately. My cancer was already late stage, and if we didn't act, it would spread. I didn't know how to tell people, but my doctors and therapists told me not to. They said talking about it would make it worse. They said no cancer journal, no blog, no emails, no family updates, and definitely no one-man show. Put it on stage, they said, and it will spread like wildfire. So I kept it inside, went back to work, listened to Anton, helped him silently. I worked on my handwriting, tested AI voices. Anton never seemed to notice when it wasn't really me speaking. Then treatment started, 7 weeks of chemo and radiation. They fitted me with a mask molded tight around my head, bolted to a table for 20 minutes at a time. At first, it felt like nothing. Later, like a sunburn inside my throat, inside my face. Then, worse, coughing blood, spitting up skin. It was like I was molting, spitting up mushy copies of myself. Chemo made me weak, didn't take my hair, but it stole my taste. Everything turned metallic, even water tasted wrong. Food, vital for survival, was grotesque. Every morning I forced down protein shakes, blending expensive ice cream I couldn't taste, choking it down with water that felt poisonous. Coffee, something I loved more than anything in the world, suddenly tasted like death, like chewing on the bark of a dead, stupid tree, like a pointless exercise. Sometimes I made coffee just to smell it, but then that went away too. But there was this thing that wasn't so bad, something they call becoming a chemo savant. It happens sometimes. People get really good at strange things for a short window of time while they're getting chemo infusions. For me, it was Esperanto. I became fluent, and I also could read entire pages of text in a flash, like just one glance, and all the words just got locked in. I read Philip K. Dick's Valis 60,000 times. I didn't understand it, even after that many times, but it was incredible while it lasted. Other patients had their own gifts. A woman played the French horn with perfect tone. A man started speaking an extinct language that baffled linguists, some of which were the linguists because that was their chemo savant skill. And there was even a guy who could suddenly perform slam poetry. He could create a poem out of thin air about anything and get it all done in less than 3 minutes. It wasn't my thing, but other people really enjoyed it. But like everything else in life, it faded. And we were all just weak again, back on the table in the radiation room, bolted down, throat filled with a rubber eraser they called a bite. I lost so much weight they had to build me a second mask. You can see them both here. One that no longer fit my face, one remade for a smaller version of me. Normally, patients pick music during radiation, bring a playlist, something soothing. But since I was in the anti-coddling program, they piped in the most offensive music they could find. Sometimes disco. Once they learned I had a weird sense of humor and enjoyed the most inappropriate selections, they did their homework and found ways to hurt me. Dave Matthews Band. 20 minutes straight. Sometimes they made AI-generated songs about me, about my pain, my treatment, my face being burned away. And I pretended not to like those, but I like them all more than I should have. And I'm gonna play one for you. A second.
Chris Bauer, you have cancer. Chris Bauer, you have sex cancer. Chris Bauer, you didn't get lucky. Chris Bauer, you are such a sad piece of shit. Chris Bauer, you are dying. Chris Bauer, we are sending radiation through your body. Chris Bauer, we are torching your face. Chris Bauer, we are burning up what's left of your face. Chris Bauer, stop laughing. Chris Bauer, we are burning up your face.
And after all that, and that song makes me root for the radiation. After all the treatments, the mask, the music, I still went to work every day with Chef Anton. He was preparing the irresistible menu, making demands of me, not realizing I was withering away. I spoke to him through different AI voices, never British, of course, because then I wouldn't be able to understand myself. The menu he was building wasn't for tongues, it was for everything else. A dish for the gut, for the pancreas, for the lungs, for the heart, for the backs of your knees, for the center of your fucking soul. And like always at Cafe Neckbeard, every dish was probably celiac-intolerant. Even the salad course designed to tickle the taste buds located where your tail used to be, a single blueberry dangling from the ceiling on a piece of string, coated in an incredibly rare, utterly tasteless purple whole wheat flour. I could sit here for an hour and tell you how much it hurt that Chef Anton didn't notice me, that he never realized. But I also learned about focus, about pain, about generosity, about what it means to love something so much that you build your entire life around it. And that sometimes when you recognize that kind of love in other people, you realize how different we are and how much the same. My doctors told me not to talk about my pain, not to write about it, not to make a show out of it. They thought being out loud about it would make me sicker. When I told them that this show was advertising, not personal expression, not theater, not art, just pure profit-driven work, they perked up. They said, "Oh, cancer is afraid of capitalism." I wondered why they didn't mention that before. But when I explained there are only 40 seats in the theater, they questioned whether or not that even counted as capitalism. And the doctors drifted into the hallway debating if cancer bought into the usual small business rhetoric. Honestly, I don't know if any of this makes a difference. What works, what doesn't. Just like I don't know if the irresistible menu really works. There's no way to know, which, if you're generous, might be part of the fun. I don't know. But I know this, my voice is back. My tumor's gone. It melted away like butter, but not really like butter at all. If Anton knew I had a tumor, he might have tried to get me to give it to him. Not the virus, but the tumor itself, just to see what it might taste like. My taste buds are muted, but they've partially returned. And I can report that I can once again deeply enjoy coffee. The end of the story, at least this one, came the day I walked into the kitchen and found Chef Anton livid. He was watching the news. Masked agents sweeping people off the street, trucks filling up, fear, discrimination, hunger, fascists in power, crushing dissent. And maybe he was angry about that somewhere. But what he raged about was a proposal to rename THLSN, the historic Logan Square neighborhood. People were saying it was too long, too messy, too inconvenient for real estate signs, and two factions had formed. One wanted simply Logan, the other Square. Everyone but Anton, it seemed, was ready to move on. Anton had strong opinions, but he didn't protest. He sent me, his proxy, his reflection, out into the streets to do what he wouldn't. I left through the alley with my THLSN Forever sign, and there waiting was his brother, his twin brother, Tuxedo, haunted, pale as if never fully dry, his tuxedo encrusted with ancient sand, his shirt once white, glowing gold. I caught him up breathlessly. I told him everything you've just heard, and it brought me back to the celery farm, Tuxedo in the barn with the celery pig, Anton trapped in the Queen's kitchen, Tuxedo sharpening 2 tomahawks in the forest until he was ready. In Anton's version, no one dies, just a summer with an aunt who loves celery. In Tuxedo's version, the only one that makes sense, the Queen raises something shiny, and Tuxedo buries a hatchet in her neck, her green necklaces falling, her cries bubbling into blood. The celery pig charges, and he drives the second blade into its skull. Anton watched, Anton cried. And afterward, Tuxedo swam the celery fields as if they were an ocean, dreaming of Wendy, dreaming of escape. That's what came back to me in the alley. Tuxedo always the one to do what Anton couldn't, the proxy, the reflection. Now he stood before me, older but not ruined. He told me he'd gone back inside Wendy, working part-time as a fisherman for the French cafe. He fished, he slept, he aged, and when he left, he was older than his twin brother, detached from the mirror. And he walked away, and as he walked away, he sang the whale's song for lost fishermen, the one they sang for his father, now for him. Another fisherman was fished today, another man has gone out to sea. Another fisherman was lost today, life is moving on in Wendy. I went to the protest. I held up my sign. My heart wasn't in it. But that's what they say, right, stupid? That's what the money's for. This has been an advertisement. The whole point of this was to try to get you to eat at Cafe Neckbeard. If you can afford it, come eat at Cafe Neckbeard and try Anton's new menu, Irresistible. If you can afford it, you'll find it. If you can't, you won't. Either way, remember, it's cash only. And if you try to pay by card, there's a fee and you still can't pay by card. It's cash only. I can't stress that enough. If you wonder whether Anton's here tonight, no. We are well outside the borders of THLSN, here in Humboldt Park. He will not see this. I do not blame him. What's next for me? I don't know. I don't like change. I'm still in pain, mostly invisible, but not quite silent. My pain sings in cracks, snaps, pops. It's getting better. But I have to remember, for minutes at a time, to stretch my face and to be simply who I am. A clownfish pretending to be a goldfish.
Next time at Cafe Neckbeard, will Chef Anton finally raise enough cash to build his long-promised meditation garden, a sanctuary where he can day-conceive his next irresistible dish? Will Leo spread his wings and fly to Nantucket to reunite with Leopold on the island? What will happen to Tuxedo now that he is the older brother? Will escaping Anton's shadow be enough to allow him to actually be free? Or will freedom itself prove to be just another shadow, another performance of brotherhood, another mask he cannot remove? Will Chris Bauer break away from Anton, join forces with Doughboy, and resurrect the coffee empire of his dreams, where everything is just as it was during the pandemic, minus the pandemic itself? For years, Chris has dreamed of serving coffee in whale-themed Japanese porcelain, but fear of defying Anton's devotion to uranium glass has held him back. Now, after everything he has endured with cancer treatment, will Chris Bauer finally have the courage to use porcelain? Will we, dear audience, ever understand what truck hole actually is? Or is truck hole destined to remain unknowable? My theory, it's a show for people who want to see giant trucks dropped into giant holes, and then watch those trucks claw their way back out. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's a dating show. A dating show where trucks meet holes, and holes meet trucks. And while I'm sure there are trucks that like trucks and holes that like holes, it's not a very progressive show. You're either a truck or you're a hole. And all of the men watch, cheer, chant, and sob. Will we ever find out why Cafe Neckbeard is called Cafe Neckbeard? Will any of us ever sit down at the French cafe inside Wendy, where people step out of the time of their own lives to live inside hers, where grief is still grief, but time runs faster, so the sorrow thins more quickly, if it ever leaves at all? And if we did go, dear audience, what would we be trying to escape? What fear would still cling to us? And in the end, what, dear audience, would we order? Or would it be like Cafe Neckbeard, a predetermined meal, a prefix of memory and loss, in which the menu has already been written, and all we can do is confront what has been placed before us? Or will everything mostly stay the same, time slipping past us, edible sand falling through the fork-tined fingers of the clock, until another year has passed, and we find ourselves older, stupider, more afraid, yet still hungry for tales from Cafe Neckbeard, THLSN's only 24-hour, cash-only, fine dining establishment? And dearest audience, will we ever see each other again? Chris, are you going to end the show? Oh shit, he can't understand me.
Chris! Chris!
Yeah. Hey, Bird.
It's time to say goodnight.
Oh, okay.
Why don't you just put that mask on again, and turn on the black light so we can see that glass glow? And Charlotte? Charlotte, can you play that sex cancer song again? That seems like a great way to finish this off. Thanks, Charlotte. Good night, everyone.
Chris Bauer, you have cancer. Chris Bauer, you have sex cancer. Chris Bauer, you didn't get lucky. Chris Bauer, you are such a sad piece of shit. Chris Bauer, you are dying. Chris Bauer, we are sending radiation to your body. Chris Bauer, we are torturing your face. Chris Bauer, we are burning up what's left of your face. Chris Bauer.
Whoa! Charlotte lost ya. Thank you for coming out and supporting RhinoFest and this show, and yeah, thank you very much. And just to know, this is fiction. There's my wife here. I'm going to hand over my my incel ring to my wife to prove this is not true. So thank you very much.
Chris Bauer, you have cancer. Chris Bauer, you have sex cancer. Chris Bauer, you didn't get lucky. Chris Bauer, you are such a sad piece of shit. Chris Bauer, you are dying. Chris Bauer, we are sending radiation to your body. Chris Bauer, we are torching your face. Chris Bauer, we are burning up what's left of your face. Chris Bauer, stop laughing. Chris Bauer, we are burning up your face.